Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 10, lesson 10 of Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. This fantastic book. Your cover may look different. There's lots of different versions of the cover out in the world. I'm Reverend Wally White with Unity in Greensboro, and let's meet Todd. And his book looks different than mine.
My book looks different. Hey, everyone, I'm Reverend Todd Humphrey. I am the spiritual leader at Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And Reverend Wally are back with you tonight. Like he said, we're starting on lesson 10 in Charles Fillmore's Prosperity. As we dive in, we want to remind you that this is about creating an interactive conversation. So when you are joining us, make sure you're commenting. Let us know what resonates, what doesn't resonate. If you have questions, if you are challenged by this material, let us know because we want to hear about that. We want to have a conversation, right, Wally?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the part I love the most is like I really enjoy reading the material and talking with Todd about it and Christina when she's able to join us. But then I really, really, really love the part of when you all make comments, ask questions, whatever, and then getting in there and having that conversation. I think that's the most important part. Well, this is intended not to just be a presentation, but to be a class. And a class, it requires everybody being involved somehow in some way. So please join us in that way and be a part of this. And I promise you that whatever question you ask, someone else will be thinking about it as well. And so you while you're helping yourself get an answer, you will be helping someone else get one also.
Absolutely. So again, we're going to start on lesson 10 in prosperity. If you want to read along with this, this is on page 145. So with that, we're going to get started. Lesson 10, right giving, the key to abundant receiving. There is a law of giving and receiving, and it requires careful study if we would use it in our prosperity demonstrations. It is a law of mind action, and it can be learned and applied the same as any other law. The teaching of Jesus stands out prominently because it can be practically applied to the affairs of everyday life. It is not alone a religion in the sense that word is usually taken, but is a rule of thinking, doing, living, and being. It is not only ethical, but practical. And men have never yet sounded the depths of the simple but all inclusive words of Jesus. To some people, it is unthinkable to connect the teachings of Jesus with the counting house and the marketplace. But a deeper insight into their meaning and purpose, which the Spirit of truth is now revealing to the world, shows that these lofty teachings are the most practical rules for daily living in all departments of life. They are vital to modern civilization and the very foundation of business stability. The law of giving and receiving that Jesus taught, give and it shall be given unto you, is found to be applicable to all our commercial as well as our social relationships. We have not been more successful in making this doctrine of Jesus a practical standard for everyday guidance because we have not understood the law on which it is based. Jesus would not have put forth a doctrine that was not true and not based on unchanging law. And we can be sure that this doctrine of giving and receiving is powerful enough to support all the affairs of civilization. We have not gone deeply enough into the teaching, but have thought we understood it from a mere surface study. You look at the things that are before your face, says Paul, and Jesus also warned us to judge not according to appearance. We should form no conclusions until we have gone thoroughly into the causes and the underlying laws. The things we see outwardly are the effects that have risen from causes that are invisible to us. There is an inner and an outer to everything. Both the mental and the material conditions pervade the universe. Man slides at will up and down the whole gamut of cause and effect. The whole race slides into an effect almost unconsciously, and so identifies the senses with the effect that the causes are lost sight for thousands of years. An awakening comes in time, and the cause side of existence is again brought to the attention of men, as set forth, for example, by the doctrine of Jesus Christ. But men cannot grasp the great truth in a moment and cling to what is plainly visible to them, the effect side. The truth that things have a spiritual as well as a material identity, and that the spiritual is the cause side and of greatest value, is a revelation that may be slow in coming to most people. In this instance, it is the material side that they cling to, thinking it to be all and refusing to let go. Men have taken the letter or appearance side of the Jesus Christ document and materialized it to fit their beliefs and customs. That is the reason why the Christ message has not purified commerce, society, and government, but it should be made spiritually operative in those fields. It will easily do the work desired when its mental side is studied and when it is understood and applied from the spiritual viewpoint. There is need for reform in economics more than any other department of everyday life. Money has been manipulated by greed until greed itself is sick and secretly asks for a panacea. It does not look to the religion of Jesus Christ for healing. In fact, that is the very last place it would apply for aid, because many of the advocates of the Jesus Christ doctrine are themselves economic dependents and have no solution for the economic problem, not understanding the power of their religion. Yet no permanent remedy will ever be found for the economic ills of the world outside a practical application of the laws on which the doctrine of Jesus Christ is based. The correctness of the solution of any problem is assured by the right relation of its elements. All true reform begins with the individual. Jesus began there. He did not clamor for legislation to control men or their actions. He called his 12 apostles and through them individually instituted that reform which has as its basis an appeal to the innate intelligence, honesty, and goodness in every man. He told them, "Go ye into the world and preach the gospel to the whole creation." As people learn more definitely about the dynamic effect of thought and how ideas pass from mind to mind, they see more and more the wisdom of the Christ teaching. They are beginning to understand that there is one undeviating law of mind action, and that all thinking and all speaking is amenable to it. Thus, when Jesus said, "By thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned," he taught the power of thoughts and words to bring results in accordance with the ideas back of them. Following the metaphysical side of the teaching of Jesus, we have found that certain thoughts held in the minds of people are causing widespread misery, disease, and death. We have also found that these thoughts can be dissolved or transformed, and the whole man made over through his conscious volition. Paul well understood this process. He said, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." I'm going to pause for a second because
Yeah.
this is so important to get about how important your mind is, how your thoughts impact the experience we have of life. And if we get up and we decide today's going to be a bad day, we are going to notice every bad thing about today, right? As a man thinketh, so he is. And so we have to use the right words and have the right mental attitude, think the right thoughts to have an experience of our prosperity and of our abundance. Tell me what you're thinking, Wally.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking that this was finally kind of getting into the meat of what I think is so important about this, topic on because we're talking about giving as well. So how does, what I'm thinking and creating sickness in my life, or how do those coincide? But it is all about like the invisible thought becoming a visible thing. And I was actually just talking a little while ago with a congregant who you know as well, Todd, who has had some health challenges recently. And I'm like, well, how are you feeling today? I never say, how are you? Because I was taught by my mentor, I already know, I shouldn't ask a question I already know the answer to. How are you? I'm whole, perfect, and complete. I know that about myself and everybody else. But I will say, well, how are you feeling today? How lined up with your truth are you today, is what I'm really saying. But if you were to ask that question, that just sounds obnoxious. So I'm like, how are you feeling today? And she's like, well, she'd gotten a decent report from her doctor, but then the question came in on the it's not happening as fast as I want it to. And I was like, the healing process. And I'm like, yeah, it never does, because our minds want something that our bodies just don't go at the same rate of. Like this is my own personal belief. I've not been trained this in religion per se, although I kind of picked it up from things I've learned. But so I'm not telling other people to believe this, but I believe often sickness shows up in our bodies because we have ignored we're pushing it at a level that it's not really even meant to go, and that it's given us some hints along the way. You really need to sit down and rest. You really need to sit down and rest. But we're on this go 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 go, and so then finally the body's like, and knocking your legs out from under you, because I've been trying to tell you I need to sit down. The body being the I in that case. And I'm like, there is this thing about the physical law ruling the physical body in a way that it's always going to win. Now, what does that mean compared to what we're saying here about our thoughts creating things? And I think that, like, that's where we need to allow the spirit to create new things, but also honor where we are.
Absolutely. Very well put. And I think that's something that they definitely push on us when we're becoming ministers, right? They push this whole self-care thing, being aware of what you need to take care of yourself, because part of the thing with giving and receiving, which I know we're going to dive into more in this chapter, sometimes we give a whole lot out without giving to ourselves or being willing to receive, and we get out of balance.
Right.
And so yeah, I've had my body knock me down a couple of times and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I think like that's just part of there's some part of our human experience that keeps saying, well, you're not trying hard. Oh, you don't have that yet? Well, you must not be trying hard enough. Well, except we know that often, I was talking to somebody else last night about meditation, and they were saying sometimes they get their best kind of meditation results while washing dishes instead of like a traditional sit and be quiet meditation. And it's like, yeah, things like washing dishes, going to the bathroom, going on a long drive that you don't have the radio on, these things where there's some kind of an activity, but it's monotone, frees you up in a way to hear that still small voice. And in that same way, when instead of, well, you're not trying hard enough, sometimes what you need to do is stop trying and allow. And that's like, because the way we're all brought up, maybe it's part of the American society, certainly kind of Western, thought process. It's like you got to go, 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 and it's like, no, your body then at some point will be like, and knocking your legs out.
So, friends, if you're feeling like your legs are about to get knocked out of you, you need to have a seat. Pay
It's it.
attention. All right. Let's see. We are going to dive back in here. We're on the last paragraph on 148. Among the destructive thoughts that men indulge in and exercise are those forms of selfishness which we know as avarice, covetousness, money getting, the desire for financial gain, and for possessing the things of the world. These thoughts threaten seriously to disturb the civilization of the world and the stability of the whole race. The sole thought of money getting is being allowed by men and women to generate its cold vapor in their souls until it shuts out all the sunlight of love and even of life. The remedy for the misery caused by destructive thoughts is not far to seek. It lies in constructive thinking along the lines that Jesus laid down. Indeed, the remedy for the ills to which flesh is heir lies in conformity to the divine law that Jesus revealed his true followers. It is said of these true followers, this is in Acts 4, chapter 4, verse 32, that they were of one heart and soul, and not one of them said that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. So many true Christians have observed this righteous law and sought to conform to it in community life. Such efforts have not always been successful because there was not the necessary recognition of the mental factor and the discipline of ideas. So long as the idea of covetousness is lodged in the human mind as its dominant generating factor, there can be no successful community life. That idea must be eliminated from the mental plane first. The next step, the outer practice, will then be safe and successful. Everywhere, true metaphysicians are preparing themselves to be members in the great colony that Jesus is to set up, by working to eliminate from their mind all selfish ideas, along with all other discordant vibrations that produce inharmony among members of the same group. A step in this direction is the gradual introduction of the free will offering plan to replace the world's commercial standard of reward for services. We are striving to educate the people on this question of giving and receiving, and to let their own experience prove to them that there is a divine law of equilibrium in financial matters that corresponds to the law of balance and poise that holds the suns and the planets in place. In order to make a success of this great effort, we must have the loving cooperation of everyone to whom we minister. The law is based on love and justice, and it equitably and harmoniously adjusts all the affairs of men. It goes even further, for it restores a harmony and balance in both mind and body that results in happiness and health as well as prosperity. Love and justice are mighty powers, and all things must eventually come under their influence, because even a few men and women of right motive can, by right thinking and consequent just action, introduce these ideas into the race consciousness and pave the way for their universal adoption. The movement has already begun, and it is rapidly gaining headway. Every student and reader is asked to give it impetus by resolving to be unselfish and just without compulsion. The race consciousness is formed of thoughts, currents, and the dominant beliefs of all the people. A few men and women will rise above these currents of thought and become independent thinkers. The dominating race idea of money getting as the goal of success is now being replaced by the idea of usefulness and good works. This idea must be carried out by individuals who have resolved to think and to act in the Jesus Christ way. To be one of these individuals and to contribute to the change in the race consciousness, first dedicate yourself in spirit to the ministry of Jesus and resolve to carry forward the great work he has commissioned you to do. This does not mean that you must preach like Paul or necessarily carry on any extensive work in the outer. In the silence of your inner chamber, you can do a mighty work of power by daily denying the beliefs in avarice and covetousness and affirming the universal sway of divine love and justice. You can make the idea of exact equity and justice between man and man the central theme of all your saying and doing. When you see examples of greed and avarice, or when thoughts of these speak a place in your mind, remember the words of the Master. What is that to thee? Follow thou me. Never for a moment allow yourself to entertain any scheme for getting the better of your fellows in any trade or bargain. Hold steadily to the law of equity and justice that is working in and through you, knowing for a certainty that you are supplied with everything necessary to fulfill all your requirements. Give full value for everything you get. Demand the same for everything you give. But do not try to enforce that demand by human methods. There is a better way. Think of Think of yourself as spirit working with a powerful spiritual forces, and know that the demands of spirit must and will be met.
I think there's some real challenge in this information because it's not the way we've kind of been taught to eat or be eaten, as it says, and that's a lyric in the Circle of Life, but and this is saying, like, don't expect something because you're owed it, because you did this or that from somebody else. Expect it because you're supposed to have good stuff, and don't expect it from John Doe because you did something for John Doe. Expect it to come from wherever it is most naturally going to flow to you, because you've planted the seed of good giving and it's going to come back. That is the law. We screw the law by saying, but it's supposed to, I did it here. That's the odd thing. When you're on a real farm and you plant a seed, it's going to grow exactly where you planted the seed. Spiritually, you may plant it here and it show up over there somewhere, but it will show up. And if you just expect your good, then you receive your good.
That's right. Grateful expectancy.
Yeah, it's what was it that it said over here somewhere else about the um oh Lord, I don't even know now, but it was talking about that, like, don't expect this giving and receiving thing in an owing kind of way, or feeling like you have to earn it, or that somebody owes you something because of fill in the blank. They don't owe you nothing. They're an equal child of God to you. We don't answer to each other in that way. We may answer to each other to be respectful, to be loving, to be all of that. But as children of God, we are all equal in a way that I don't think we respect necessarily in so many processes.
Absolutely. Yep. We definitely have to give up the idea that we receive because we are owed something. And we have to give up the idea that if we give, then we deserve to receive. Right? It's just the flow. You're standing in the flow of infinite source. I'm babbling a little bit. I'm gonna go back to the chapter.
Yeah, but I talking about the flow, I've also been doing some study of the book In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth.
Mhm.
And he starts out by making it really clear what that flow is. Like if you want to live in the flow, what does that mean? What are you living in? And it's like it's an inside out thing. And if you really get that and decide to make that your truth, because you can say, nope, the money, I go out and work and the money comes from outside into my account, right? And it's like, yes, that is absolutely true. That is how the money does flow on that part. But the good flow comes in out. So if you're upset about something that's happening out there, the great news is once you've accepted this in out, as your truth, you can be like, oh, I can't even be upset about that because that didn't have anything to do with me. My good's coming from in here. So I can't be upset and say this thing out there is stopping me from getting my good because that's not even where my good comes from.
Absolutely. Love it. Okay. Back to the text. We're at the last sentence on 151. Do not plan to lay up for the future. Let the future take care of itself. To entertain any fears or doubts on that point saps your strength and depletes your spiritual power. Hold steadily to the thought of the omnipresence of universal supply, its perfect equilibrium, and its swift action in fulfilling every apparent vacuum or place of lack. If you have been in the habit of hoarding or of practicing stringent economy, change your thought currents to generosity. Practice giving, even though it may be in a small way. Give in a spirit of love and give when you cannot see any possibility of return. Put real substance into your gift by giving the substance of the heart with the token of money or whatever it is. Through the power of your word, you can bless and spiritually multiply everything that you give. See yourself as the steward of God, handing out his inexhaustible supplies. In this manner, you are setting into action mental and spiritual forces that eventually bring large results into visibility. Be happy in your giving. God loves a cheerful giver because his mind and heart are open to the flow of the pure substance of being that balances all things. Do not give with any idea that you are bestowing charity. The idea of charity has infested the race consciousness for thousands of years, and it is responsible for the great army of human dependence. Do all you can to annul this mental error. There is no such thing as charity as popularly understood. Everything belongs to God, and all his children are equally entitled to it. The fact that one has a surplus and gives some of it to another does not make the one a benefactor and the other a dependent. The one is with a surplus is simply a steward of God and is merely discharging the work of his stewardship. When one asks for divine wisdom and understanding about giving, it becomes a joy both to the giver and to the recipient.
I think we were to
Followers,
stop and talk about that because I know
okay,
that that's an area of passion for you. Like I've picked up new information about that from you, even about, thinking about like, of course you want to give to a charity, but you don't give to the charity because it's a charity. Don't think about it as a charity. Don't give to the charity, well, because, those people, they're in bad shape. But I know I did learn from my mentor that if you're thinking that, the best thing you can do for those people is forget about them and get out of their way because they don't need you helping them make more bad, and that's all you're doing in that moment.
when we give to need, we create more need, right? We give from our abundance. We give because we are stewards. Look at all the good I have, and I get to give it away, right? With joy and with love, without expecting anything in return, right? And
Yeah.
and that's honestly, that is a new place of arrival for me. You know, I was I was in a meeting not too long ago, and someone was talking about um rewarding people because of, you know, giving, and I was like, I don't. Is that the teaching? Is that the teaching? Um, and you know, for me, in my expansion of consciousness and where I currently sit in this, you know, as I look at leadership in my community, you know, I want leaders who take some ownership and help support programming, right? And take a fiduciary responsibility seriously, and they contribute the good they have that they are stewards of. So, you know, it's because I don't want to hold the idea that, you know, everybody gets to show up and be in receivership, right?
Right.
Because even though we are a spiritual community, we still have bills to pay.
Well, and that's the flow, right? Like part of the flow is understanding that the law of giving and receiving, and both are equally required.
Yes.
You know, and some people want to be great givers, and then they get uncomfortable if you even tell them, if you try and give them a compliment, and they get uncomfortable, you
Right.
know. And so, you know, in that case, people have to work on allowing themselves to also be receivers and just say thank you instead of coming up with an excuse for it, or the, you know, whatever. But
Right.
but there are also the people that are really good at saying thank you, or maybe not even saying that, just taking it, you know. But they, if they don't, if you think of the flow as water, you need that. Both things have to be happening at all times, because if you just take and you never give, then you're going to build a flood situation.
Right.
And lakes are pretty, but floods are disasters, you
Yes.
know. And then same thing, if you are, you know, if you're just giving, but you're not also taking the time to receive, then like you're giving out water and you're going to thirst yourself to death because you're never taking time to actually get some of it.
Yeah.
Both are really, really important and fun if you really do it in that joyous way. You know that line where it says God loves a joyous giver, or however it says it exactly. That's not talking about some old man on a cloud that smiles when you do something or how you do something. That's talking about the very best part of me lights up in this whole new way when I give joyously. When I'm happy, all of me lights up in a happy way. That is what that means. It's all about us. It's not about some old man on a cloud.
We need to be reminded of that occasionally. There's too much of that theology in the world.
Right.
Okay. We're on the second paragraph on 153. Is that right?
I think, yeah, the just basically that last couple of lines there on 153. Are you good, or you want me to read any?
Why don't you go ahead and start? I think we're at a good switch in place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh, there are many examples that could be given to prove the outworking of the law. The covetousness idea has a great power over the body. It would avail little to treat the outer manifestation before first removing the inner cause from the mind. The salvation of such people is to learn to give generously and freely, not from compulsion or from the sake of reward, but from a love of giving. Some metaphysicians think to cure their patients of the hold of avarice thoughts by charging them a good round price for their treatments. By the same token, the medical doctor who charges the most is surest to heal his patients, and any service for which an exorbitant price is charged is the best. Surely this would be a foolish idea. Metaphysical healing has become so popular that hundreds have gone into it as a business and are making of it an industry founded on the old commercial idea, just as cold and calculating, as hard and unyielding as the idea is that the ranks of the money changers of mammon. Surely there is a more excellent way, one more in harmony with the divine law, a way that permits the heart as well as the head and hand to be used in the grace of giving and receiving. Those who are using the free will offering method meet with some criticism and opposition from those who hold the commercial method and say that charging a definite sum is the legitimate way. They accuse unity of fostering charity and poverty and keeping alive the spirit of getting something for nothing that is manifested by so many people. Our reply is that we are pursuing the only course that could ever effectually eradicate those erroneous states of consciousness and bring people into an understanding of the spiritual law of prosperity through giving in love. Everyone should give as he receives. In fact, it is only through giving that he can receive. Until the heart is quickened at the center and the mind is opened up to truth, there is no permanent healing. Everyone can make a fair return for everything he gets. We aim to show moneyless paupers that they can give something in return for the good that has been done them. It may be to pass the true word to some other needy one, or merely to lift up their voice in thanksgiving and praise where before they were dumb. We recognize the necessity of some action of the mammon-bound mind. It must be made to let go somewhere before it can receive the light and the power of spirit. Our work is to bring men and women to the place of true and lasting dominion where they are superior to both riches and poverty. We can do this by showing them that they are spiritual beings, that they live in a spiritual world here and now, and that through the apprehension of the truth of their being and their relation to God, this dominion is to be realized. The central and most vital fact that they must come to realize is that an idea has the power of building thought structures, which in turn materialize in the outer environment and affairs and determine every detail of their existence. Every man is a king ruling his own subjects. These subjects are the ideas existing in his mind and the subjects of his thought. Each man's ideas are as varied and show as many traits of character as the inhabitants of any empire. But they can all be brought into subjection and made to obey through the I am power that is the ruler of the kingdom. In your domain of mind, there may be colonies of alien ideas, the Philistines, Canaanites, and other foreign tribes that the children of Israel found in their promised land when they attempted to take possession. The story of the children of Israel and how they gained the possession of that land is a symbolical representation of the experience of everyone who seeks to claim his own consciousness in the name of the Lord. The meaning in Hebrew of the name Canaanite is merchant or trader. In other words, a set of ideas that has to do with the commercial phase of life. Study the children of Israel, spiritual ideas in their experiences with the Canaanites, and you will get many valuable hints on subduing and handling your own money-getting ideas. I think there's a lot of powerful information in those last couple of chapters in there, that it's talking about, how do you exist in the world where there is money changing and trading? Yesterday I left the office and I was like, I got stuff to do when I get home. I skipped lunch altogether. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've only had a bagel. I want to have a full on meal. I'm going to go to a restaurant before I go home. Well, I can't come in there and smile and give them a couple compliments. The rules of the world I'm living in, they're going to be happy to give me the food and they're going to try and make sure it tastes as good as possible. And I better be prepared to give them the cash that they're expecting,
Right.
because that's the physical world rules that we're living in. And at the same time, we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual world ruled by spiritual laws. So I think the question that comes from people interested in what you have to say on it, Todd, is how are both of those true, in a way of how do we exist in both of those laws at the same time? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and I'm trying to put them in order so they will make a little bit of sense. We have to always come back to the truth that there is in spirit a solution for every human need.
Yes.
And sometimes we get distracted by the material world. And when we don't see the solution, we think that it's not there. I recently had a congregant who bought a basketball goal for her grandkids. And I was, for whatever reason, I made the agreement that I would go and help assemble this thing. It was a comedy of errors. And in the end, when it's finally all together, the big plastic thing that the pole mounted to broke.
Uh-oh.
And everything's already assembled, and it's just the bottom piece breaks, so it can't stand up. And so the rule, like the physical manifest rule, is you're gonna have to disassemble everything, take the whole thing back, and exchange the whole package, because that's the only way they know how to do business. And I just kept in my mind that that's not the truth. There is a solution here that supersedes anybody's idea of this is the way it has to be done. And I walked into that store, presented the problem, and said, I know that you have a solution. And the manager of that store said, sure, we're going to unpack the piece you need and trade it out. So I didn't have to disassemble the entire, it took a while. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. So, we always have to remember that in divine mind, there is a solution that we are not capable necessarily of seeing as in an individual from our human consciousness, right? And the talk that I'm preparing for the next Sunday that I'm speaking is based on this affirmation that God makes a way where there is no way. God makes a way. Divine mind makes a way where we can't see that there's a way.
Right.
And that's part of our prosperity. And that's part of our willingness to show up in grateful expectancy to receive the gifts of the Spirit. And we can't limit what they're going to be. We can't limit how they can look.
Yeah, and it really is in that relaxing and allowing the answer to come in so many ways, right? Because there was certainly a time in life in my 20s that the idea that I would go into a restaurant with just one friend, forget a whole table of them, and that at the end of the meal that I would offer to pay the whole check, Like that was well, I can't do that. I don't have enough money to do that. Like, I was plenty happy to say thank you if somebody else offered to do it, but like I was out of time in life, and I actually had a good job at that point, but I was living in New York City, and it cost to live there, and um but um now I do that all the time, and I have fun to at the end of a meal say, I got this. Like it wouldn't pre-planned out, I always joke, and so you got to be careful with your words too. Like joking and humor is good, but I'll often, if somebody says, "Oh, well, I've got the check," I'll joke sometimes and say, "Well, I wish I'd have known that. I'd have ordered the lobster." And but and that's not true. I don't need it. Lobster's too messy, and I don't even want the lobster. But I make the joke because I think it's the most expensive thing on the menu. But it's finding that place and then allowing the answer to come, but also not running up the bill and then creating an emergency because you ran up a bill you already knew you couldn't pay. That, like, don't start asking the question then. Like, start asking the question and start being. That's why we're invited to meditate every day, because if you will get in that habit of listening, of shutting up so you can hear the still small voice. It's never going to raise its voice to be heard. It's consistent. And when you get that, it's awesome because you can lean on it. Like if it's consistent, you can depend on it. It's like the rock, it's like faith in that way. So, because if it's like, oh, well, it yelled at me because I wasn't listening. Well, now you never know exactly what frequency to listen to, you know. But if you get in the habit of it, you'll hear it more often at faster. If you are not in the habit of it, it may be frustrating for a little while and you feel like, well, I can't even meditate. I just fall asleep, or I'm just sitting there and nothing comes to me. And it's like, yeah, because it's a habit. It's a craft. It's all those things. But in listening and not waiting until there's the emergency to start asking for the divine mind information.
Yes.
I don't know.
I love
What
our
do I
conversations. Love them, love them.
All right, let's see. I think I'm at the bottom paragraph on 156.
Yes.
You may allow avariciousness and stinginess to develop in your mind domain until the very blood in your body starts to dry up and your nerves are shaken and palsied with the fear of future poverty. If so, it is time these ideas were driven out and a new set of ideas settled in your domain to become active in building up a new state of consciousness, your nation. Begin at once to let go of your all-consuming thoughts of gain. Think about generosity and begin to be generous for your own sake. It is more blessed to give than to receive, will prove itself to you as the law. If you will be blessed by a new influx of ideas of life, health, and prosperity when you start giving. Instead of being grasping and avarice, perhaps you have gone to the other extreme and have cultivated ideas of small things financially. You may have been fostering poverty by holding ideas of pennies instead of dollars, or of hundreds instead of thousands. You may be thinking that you cannot give because your income is small or your supply is limited. Your remedy is to cultivate ideas of abundance. Claim God as your inexhaustible resource, that all things are yours. But in order to set in motion the accumulated energy of your thought, you must also begin to give. You may be able to give only pennies at first, but give them in the name and the spirit of your opulent God. Send them forth with all the love of your heart and say to them, as they go. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies you. I just want to add to that. I won't take a full thing on this, but like if it's a penny you're starting with, go find a kid to give it to. Like, you give an adult a penny, they may think it's cute. Maybe they'll get into the spirit of it with you. But like, you know, if gumball machines for pennies exist somewhere, or whatever price a gumball is now, okay, first ask the parent if they're allowed to have it, because it's not your business to make that decision. And if the parent says yes, then give that penny, that quarter, however much it costs for a gumball now, and watch that face light up. That's in us. That's what we're looking to light up when we give. So, all right. Your consciousness is like a stream of water. If the stream is in any way dammed up, the water settles in all the low places and becomes stagnant. The quickest way to purify and reclaim the low, swampy places in your consciousness is to let in the flood from above by opening the dam. Many people try to demonstrate God as their supply by repeating affirmations of abundance now present, but fail to deny and thus to let go of the old condition and old belief in lack by beginning to give as generously as possible. It is not the amount you give measured by standards of the world. It is the good will you send forth with the gift, which can be measured only by spiritual standards. I want to read that sentence again. It is not the amount you give measured by standards of the world. It is the good will you send forth with the gift, which can be measured only by spiritual standards. God loveth a cheerful giver. The Greek word here translated cheerful is hilarion, which means really hilarious, joyful. The gift may be measured in dollars and cents, but God looks not on such standards. He looks on and loves the joyful giver. We read in Deuteronomy 28, 47 and 48, because thou servest not Jehovah thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, by reason of the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. This shows that there is a definite relation between the cheerfulness or joyfulness of your giving and our prosperity. Whether we make a large or a small gift, let us make it with largeness of cheer and joy, even in hilarity, remembering that God loveth a hilarious giver. Keep therefore the words of this covenant and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do. And then I think this is an affirmation that Charles is giving us here. It says, blessings that may be placed on our gifts. Okay, that's what he's given us. Blessings for our gifts. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies this offering. The Father gives abundantly. I receive thankfully and give again generously. This is the bounty of God, and I send it forth with wisdom and joy. Divine love bountifully supplies and increases this offering. I give freely and fearlessly, fulfilling the law of giving and receiving. I love that Greek explanation of changing joyous to hilarious. Like that gives you a new perspective on it, right? Of what kind of joy you're really talking about here.
Yes. Yes. So, friends, that's the end of lesson 10 of Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. Reverend Wally, great spending time with you again and diving into this incredible teaching. I
I
love
love
spending
this
time with you.
information so much, and I love studying it with you, and I love studying it with everyone who's joined us in the various platforms that this is all airing on.
Yep.
And I put out the challenge and ask you to come type in what you did. Find something uniquely different this week that you can joyously give. Choose the person or the organization. I'm actually going to back off of that. Give to as many organizations as you feel. Choose a person that you can joyously give something that they're not expecting and see how that goes. And like if like finances are of a challenge, do it with a quarter, do it with $1, do it with $1. Um, and find that thing and tell us about that thing. Like I can tell you, like, and some people are saying now you should send a gift to a teacher instead of buying somebody coffee in a Starbucks line. I buy coffee for people in the Starbucks line and they're in their own car. So I never get to be a part of it. But I've also been the receiver of that. And man, like that inner smile that comes up because I wasn't expecting it. So find that. I'll try and find mine too. And I'll type mine in there as well. But type in something, not just something past. That's wonderful that you've done it in the past. This week, I ask you to get $1 and go joyously give it in some way to somebody that's not expecting it.
Yes.
All right. Good lesson 10.
Peace, my friends. Thanks, Reverend Walling.
Thank you.